It was awful. There was like 30 vocab words at the beginning of like anywhere from 2 lines to like 6 lines that we had to memorize. And then these things were hard. And my sister was a good student. And I remember there was one Canadian social she could not pass. And she didn't fail. And I'm sure pass was somewhere around 90. So, I mean, she was probably still doing good. But those tests were sacred and you had to master. So she couldn't pass it. And I feel like she failed it twice. My mom would know this. She's not here at the moment. And so after the second time, if you failed, you had to repeat the whole booklet and take the test again. That's why I'm so smart today, guys. That's what I grew up in. No. And so she'd have to take it. And I think after the second time, my mom went to the teacher at the time and was like, can you just give us a hint? Like, she's trying hard and she's just not getting it. Can you kind of let us know, like, a direction on the test so she can put some energy and focus on that? And nope. You can't do that. Why? Because then it's not mastery. There was no, like, the test was sacred. We can't let you, now it's like, we'll give you some, anyways. But the test was sacred. So that was my upbringing with testing. And so when I got to university, I remember my first math class. I think it was a second-year calculus class. But I think calculus was designed, if anyone's taken calculus in university, it was designed to sift through all the first years to see who was really serious about university and engineering or, anything with the sciences or being a doctor. Like half the people dropped university who had aspirations for math or science or engineering because of that class. It was very difficult. But I remember, I think on my second year, the professor came up and he said something that just rocked my world. And he said this. He goes, I'm going to allow you to bring a cheat sheet into class. And all I heard in that was cheat. Right? Because I grew up, we had the nonstop honesty, instant obedience, all these things. And you couldn't cheat, And so I was like, what is this cheat sheet? And he said, you can get a blank piece of paper and write anything you want on both sides. And as long as it's on that piece of paper, you get to bring that paper in with you to the final, to the test. And I about fell over. And so I didn't know, but I had the gift of writing as small as possible all of a sudden and still being legible. Like that sheet was double-sided, and it was filled with every little thing. I had formulas, I had equations, I had questions, practice questions, and I knew exactly where they were, and I studied that thing. But I got to bring that cheat sheet in with me to class. And what I discovered in that is I realized that kind of taking off the pressure of having to know everything in your mind, but having a little cheat sheet that gave you a guide, it made the test way more easy. Way more graspable. There was a lot less winging it, trial and error, kind of hoping for the best and going, I don't know this, because I was like, I don't know that. Oh, there's a similar question, or there's a formula I can use. And so I had this cheat sheet, and it gave me the best chance of coming up with the right answers and passing the test. And so that was really cool for me. And so math, I discovered, is so much easier when you are allowed to have a cheat sheet. And last week, I sat here and we brought the bench back because we're in the middle of our series called Box of Chocolates. And so these chocolates have been sitting here waiting. And many of you are thinking at some point I'm going to give them out because that's what I do. But I don't know if I will. But here, I sat here and said, life is like a box of chocolates, right? And so we used that quote from Forrest Gump and we focused on the like part. Life is like a box of chocolates. And I said last week, you can't forget the word like. Why? Because like changes it. If you forget the word like, it goes from a simile to a reality. It goes from a fun, interesting comparison to an outcome. Life is not a box of chocolates. Life is like a box of chocolates. And so just because some things in your life seem like they're real doesn't mean they're real. The enemy goes around like a roaring lion, not a roaring lion, but tries to make it seem like he's a roaring lion and makes a lot of noise. I gave the story of the dog walking by the dog with Che and ourselves, and the dog was leashed up. Like a flood, the enemy comes in like a flood, And so there's these things that allude to similes. And so don't forget that from 2 weeks ago. It wasn't last week. I might have said that. between simile and reality, but we didn't focus on the second half of that quote, which I'm going to do today. Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. And then he said this, you never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get. And sometimes life is like that, isn't it? You don't really know what you're going to get. Some stuff surprises you. I remember talking about fresh breath and getting the wind knocked out of you because you didn't see it coming. Life does something, you're like, whoa, that one wasn't there. And so Forrest Gump makes this thing, and I don't know, he's referencing his mom always told him this. So I don't know what kind of chocolate boxes they had back in the day, but I do know today there's been some changes potentially because he says, you never know what you're going to get. But do you all know that nowadays they have a chocolate cheat sheet? So Bob knows. I remember back in the day, whether I didn't use the cheat sheet or not, but I would just, you had to bite and it was trial and error, and you'd be like wanting a chocolate, this one looks good, and you'd bite in, and like I said, you'd get coconut instead of caramel, and you'd be like, oh, that's gross, And so you had to do it by trial and error or by making mistakes. But then they invented this, and a lot of them started inside where they actually have a cheat sheet, and now they actually put it on the back. Most have it on the back or both, and so this one says, mocha cream, vanilla caramel, pecan caramel, orange, truffle, chocolate caramel. And they give a picture of it. So now when I go into these chocolates, I'm not just sitting there trying to guess at the answer or the chocolate that I want. I can use the chocolate cheat sheet, and so it won't be like Forrest Gump said, you never know what you're going to get. If you have a cheat sheet, you know what you're going to get. If you have the answers on the back, you've written something, you know what you're going to get. And so, like math is so much simpler with a cheat sheet, eating chocolate is so much better with a cheat sheet. You don't have to have, I just remember biting and being like, oh, that's not coconut. That was the one. Coconut. And so it was so much better because you're not experiencing the chocolates by trial and error, by winging it. By biting into it and then going, that's not what I wanted. So if math is like that and chocolates are like that, I would like to propose to everyone today that it would reason that even life could be better, could be more purposeful, could be more stable, could be more successful, could be just better in general with a life cheat sheet. A cheat sheet for your life, so that when you encounter difficult decisions, when you go through stuff, when circumstances happen, when there's tests. Anyone ever been through a test? You feel like life is testing you? When you're about to encounter the test, instead of winging it and doing trial and error and going, you never know what you're going to get, maybe you should have a cheat sheet, much like a math test or eating chocolates, that gives you some pointers so you at least know how to attack that question. Right? Some of you are like, yeah. So a life cheat sheet. So you know that there's going to be tests and trials and difficulties that you're going to go through. Can I get an amen? No. It's going to happen. I'm not hoping for them, but you're going to go through them. Your marriage is going to be tested. Any marriages been tested here if you're married? Yeah? Your patience is going to be tested. Anybody ever tested your patience? This live stream tested my patience today. Should have looked at my cheat sheet before I wrote the texts I did. Hey, Brian? Your love for others is going to be tested. Your faith is going to be tested. Your peace is going to be tested. Your giving could be tested. Your emotions, oh, he's getting real now. Your emotions could be tested. Being part of this church or a church could be tested. There's going to be tests that turn up the heat in your life, put the pressure on. And so I want to tell you today, this is the main point, that's the landing for the rest of what I'm going to do. When life turns up the heat, don't get caught without a... Hey, you guys are learning. I didn't even have to, well, maybe it went up there and you read it quick. But I thought you knew I'm going to rhyme it, so you already were there. When life turns up the heat... When those tests come, when the tests turn up the heat, when pressures come, when circumstances come, that's not the time to be going, I need an equation, I need a formula. You probably want some pre-written down things on your cheat sheet so you at least know how to address those things. Amen? When the math test is on and you're doing calculus, that's not when you want to start studying and going, oh, I didn't prepare, and winging it and going, I didn't know what I was going to get. Because you can have a cheat sheet. So simply, I'm going to go through this 5 categories and subsequent questions for your cheat sheet. This is what's on mine. You may have a little bit different. This is what I put on them. I picked 5 categories. These are things that should be on everyone's cheat sheet. So the first one is, number 1, it's on my sheet here somewhere. Thank you to Nathan, my intern for this time. He filled out the rest of this cheat sheet. He wrote some really funny stuff on here, but yeah, he was taking my notes and doing some fun stuff. But number 1, it's small. You don't have to read it, but I'm just showing on you. Here's the first category that you should have on your cheat sheet: finances. Finances. And by finances, I mean this: any decision that you make that affects your finances. Your financial income. What kind of job should you take? Do I upgrade my education to get a better paying job to help me here because it provides more? How many hours should I work? Do I do overtime? How much should I give? Should I tithe? Do I buy this lottery ticket? Do I buy this new dress? Do I upgrade my car? Financial decisions. 2 Corinthians 9:6 says this: Now I say this, the one who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and the one who sows generously will also reap generously. Now that word sow means to scatter. They didn't have the big tractors back in the day that sow, and so to scatter. But it has this idea of stretching out the arm, and then quickly and jerkily. But this idea of stretching out your arm, so I want you to think beyond just that, but any place where you stretch out your arm to help someone, to give, to be kind, if you do it sparingly, you get it back sparingly. But if you reach out your hand and you're looking for opportunities to sow and bless and do it generously, you will reap generously. Here's cheat sheet question for finances. Here is the cheat sheet question for finances. You ask yourself this question when you're dealing with finances: does this help me to be more generous? I have that on my cheat sheet. When you're dealing with finances, this should be your cheat sheet question when you're making decisions. Does what am I about to do help me be more generous? People are deeply thinking and pondering this, or not liking it, I don't know. Does it help me be more generous? Now, just to ease some of you, generosity is not just about money. It could be with your time. It could be with your words. It could be with your affection. It could be with your heart. It could be with your listening. It could be how you live your life. It's not exclusive to money, but generosity does include money. And so for the sake of this, with a cheat sheet, we're talking about finances specifically, but generosity is so much broader than just that. But questions you ask about generosity when dealing with a decision: does this help me give more? Does buying this help me be more generous? Does giving this help me be more generous? Now, I need to help some people here. And some of you need to listen potentially to this because it might land where you're at. You cannot give what you don't have. So I know there's some people, whether it's a love language or they're givers by nature. And so they want to be generous. And so I see people like giving things and doing things, but later in the month they can't pay their bills. Let me help somebody here. You may have a heart for generosity, and everyone should be generous and want to give. But if you've had some issues in your life with stewarding your money, then you may have to steward where you're at before you can be generous with where you want to be. And we're going to talk about a massive series coming up, I think next January, about stewardship. Like 12 parts. I've been sitting on this for 1.5 to 2 years. But stewardship is doing something with what is someone else's. You take care of it and you grow it and you multiply it. But the thing is, if we want to be generous, then I'm not saying give things you don't have. And so if you have a desire to give stuff, but you've racked up a lot of debt and it inhibits you from giving and being generous, you need to steward that so you can get out of that situation so you can step into generosity. And here's what we find ourselves. People with generous hearts might tend to try to do this. Because you wish you could be generous, instead of trying to steward your way to generosity, you try to gamble your way to generosity. Oh, it got really quiet. So all of you might have big addiction issues with gambling. No. But by gambling, I mean this, right? I'm going to make these high-risk investments so that I can give more. I'm going to do this get quick rich scheme. Get rich quick? Get quick rich? Get rich quick scheme. A scheme that wants you to get rich quickly. If I do this, then I'll have enough money. Then I can do this. If I buy this lottery ticket and I win the millions, guess what? Listen, someone needs to hear me this morning. If you can't steward where you're at, you ain't going to steward what you get. Oh, I'm going to say that again. If you can't steward what you have and the money you have, then if you get 2 million of that, then guess what? It's just a whole more money, more problems. You've heard it. You ain't going to be stewarding when you get all that. And we can do stats on that. People that win millions of dollars end up bankrupt and worse off than when they won it. Why? Because they didn't know how to steward. And so you try to get like this, casinos and different things because I want to be more generous. But just quickly, and everybody knows this, when it comes to gambling, guess what? The house always wins. The very premise that casinos and lottery and anything, investments, is somebody's getting enough money to make a profit off of the people gambling. And I just need to throw this out there. Even if you do win, again, if you buy a lottery ticket, you're not going to hell. But I'm saying, does those purchases help you be more generous? And sometimes people think, of course they will, but do they really? But if you're winning, guess where that winning is coming from? Other people doing what? Losing. If you're winning, that money, this is my famous statement, it's got to come from somewhere. And I promise you, the casino isn't investing their own money. So if you are winning, that's coming at the expense of someone else losing. Christian, if you are winning at the expense of someone else losing, is that winning Christ's way? That's for free. I'll get off that. I don't know why I'm on that. So 4 places you can be generous. I just quickly picked these just to kind of add some clarity to it. Generous with God, generous with family, generous with others, and I included this, generous with self. Generous with self. Generous with God. Everything, if you're a Christian, you may understand this. If you're not, you may go, man, I'm new here and you're talking about this, but everything we have belongs to God. We are indebted to Him. The price Jesus paid on the cross, our sin, everything should have been taken to us. So it is all God's already. We are just stewarding it for Him. I'll preach on that later. So if you want to be generous towards God, God says, all of it is mine, but God actually goes, you know what, I understand that there's going to be seed for sowing, bread for living, you should have some savings. So all I ask in return as a demonstration for generosity towards me is this thing called a tithe. He goes, I could ask for 100%, but as a demonstration of generosity towards me, I'm asking for only 10%. 10%. And so covenant, not to get into it, covenant is what is yours is mine and what is mine is yours. And we're in a new covenant now and we're covenanted to God. And God says, as a representation of your heart of generosity towards me, tithe. That's why we do it. Because it's a representation to God. I'm putting you first. I'm generous towards you. So we tithe towards God and we give towards God as a sign of generosity. Then we have family. Guess what? You should be generous with your family. It's okay to be generous with your family. It's okay to go, I need this car to make sure my kids get safely from point A to point B. You might not need the Ferrari with the spoiler on the back. I have yet to buy a motorcycle. That is my heart's desire. I have my motorcycle license, but I haven't done it because guess what? It doesn't really help my generosity with my family. It's very impractical. I can only ride it a few times, months a year, and I can't bring all my kids to school on it. That would, in some countries they do. They pile you up on there. But we wouldn't be able to do that. So I go, you know what? It doesn't help my generosity with my family, so that's going to prioritize. Now, maybe there's a season as we do the other one, generosity with yourself, where it fits. So family, it's okay to be generous with them. It's okay to be generous, and you should be generous with others. Giving and generous with others, and then with yourself. It's okay to buy yourself that new outfit. It's okay to get those lashes, right, Kristen? She was posting about them, so I saw them this morning, right, on Instagram. It's okay to do some of that stuff. But what I'm going to say is if your generosity is in one area at the expense of some of those other areas, your generosity is out of alignment. So if everything in generosity is about yourself, but you don't think of God, family, or others, it's out of alignment. If your generosity is with family or with others, watch this. You ready for this statement? If your generosity with God is out of alignment, if it's all on God, it's out of alignment. I'm going to say that again. If all your generosity is just for God, it is out of alignment. Because I said, God even said, there's seed for sowing and bread for taking care of things. If you give 100% of everything you have and just don't forget about the rest, guess what? It's out. Your generosity is out of alignment. God doesn't ask that. He asks for 10%. All right, everyone good? So that's all off cheat sheet on finances. And so if we've spent some money, we've been generous in one area over another, it affects the other areas, and we can't be generous in other areas because it's already accounted for. I talked about that with debt. We'll mention that one more time. I got to move on. You guys are listening too well. Buckle in. It's going to be a little longer today. 2 Corinthians 9:7. Each one of us must do just as he's decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Quickly, 3 things about generosity. Generosity is not about an amount. It's not about amount. Generosity does not happen accidentally. It says here, they've decided in their heart. And generosity is always done cheerfully. It's not an amount, it's more about an attitude. You can be generous with 10 cents. You could be not generous with $10,000. It's not an amount, it's an attitude, and it's something that it says they've decided in their heart. I put this, you cannot be grudgingly generous. If you feel compelled to ever give here, don't do it. Unless it's by the Holy Spirit and God. But if you feel like he's putting pressure on, don't do it. Come ready, planning to give, being generous. All right, so generosity in terms of your finance. When you're making any decision, whether it be a job, whether it be buying something, whether it be giving something, ask yourself this question: does this help me be more generous with God, with family, with others? All right, that's on the cheat sheet. Number 2, we got to move. We've got to move. Number 2, relationships. These are your friends, family, co-workers, your spouse, your sister, your brother, your church. Matthew 7:12 says this, "In everything, therefore," you've probably heard this in many different ways before, "treat people the same way you want them to treat you. For this," well, that is definitely not Matthew 7:12. I got that reference wrong. Hey, guys? "For this is the law and the prophets." Somebody could look that up. It's not Matthew 7:12, but this is the verse I want. "So in everything, therefore," that should have been in there. I should have just copied and pasted that, though. Are you using my notes or did you do these? Anyways. Treat people the same way you want them to treat you, for this is the law and the prophets. Here's the cheat sheet question for relationships. Am I treating others how I would like to be treated? Got to find that. There it is on my cheat sheet. Am I treating others how I would like to be or want to be treated? Matthew what? 22:40. I can't be that far off, eh? Golly, that's a whole nother. Is it? So did I just read that wrong then on there? Okay. I don't know what happened. I thought I looked at a verse that said something totally different, but maybe not. Here's what I want to say about that point. Treat others how I'd want to be treated. Listen, this does require a base level of self-awareness. Okay, understand. Treat others how you want to be treated. I'm not going to get into it, but if somebody has a bad image of self or has, hurting people hurt people, right? And so if there's some fundamental things of how you see yourself wrong, then it's when you say treat people how you want to be treated and you feel like you should be treated like garbage or something, then that's another message and we have to address that. But we're basing it on some good self-awareness and somebody has self-esteem enough to feel good about themselves and how they should be treated. I'm not saying everyone has that, but you could get off in this verse in some places and go like, if this person doesn't want to be treated well, am I supposed to treat them badly? Right? And so some of that and working through that, that's another message, but I just wanted to point that out. So here's some questions around that. Would I want what I'm doing to be done to me? What I'm about to do, would I want that same thing to be done to me? Would I want what I'm saying to be said about me? Oh, yeah. What I'm saying about this person right now, would I want them saying it about me? Would I want what I am or how I'm judging this person to be judged about me? Am I forgiving like I want to be forgiven? Do I show mercy like I would like to be shown mercy? Am I giving like I want to be given to? Can I let go of that grudge like I hope someone lets go of a grudge on me? See, it's a great thing to have a cheat sheet in your relationships because guess what? There's going to be times that the heat's going to be turned up in a relationship in your life. And someone's going to anger you. Someone's going to say something you don't like. Someone's going to hurt you. Do you know that at some point, as I am lead pastor of City Center Church, I most likely will say or do something that offends or hurts you? Just get it out now. Maybe even, hopefully not weekly, but monthly. And you are going to do a whole lot of things that annoy me. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm going to do something. Guess what? If you've been married for 12 seconds after the honeymoon, then you realize there's going to be something they say or do that just irks you. And you're going to want to say or do something back that irks them equally the same. Anyone been there? Oh, no, you didn't. Well, yeah, you never. You always. Right? You're going to have a coworker that's going to get on that, your last nerve. It's fraying and they step on it. Parents, I said this, if there's any teens in here, guess what? Teens, your parents are going to put some rules and some instructions and some boundaries on you that you're going to dislike. Right, Aylin? She's here, that's why I said it. And so teens, are you going to treat them how you want to be treated? Are you going to talk back? Are you going to push back? Parents, are you going to push in some places and ground for 6 weeks because you're frustrated of that moment? Or are you going to treat them how you would want yourself to be treated maybe in that situation if you were put in their shoes? See, because when these moments happen, if you don't have a cheat sheet, you're going to think of this, payback. In a relationship, you're going to think of, I want to give them the cold shoulder. I'm going to give them the silent treatment. I'm going to passively, aggressively hint at stuff until they finally get it of how much frustration I'm having at this. I'm going to let everyone know on social media how awful this person is towards me. Come on. I'm going to post about this, my frustrations to this, doing this. I'm going to yell and curse in the middle of the street. I saw that we were cleaning up a couple weeks ago. 2 people just going at it. I had to break up a fight. Guy was just going at a girl. They were not treating each other how they would like to be treated. Another aside, I don't have time for asides, but I'm going to keep them in. I'm not talking about dysfunctional or harmful relationships here. Okay, there's just some people that need to get their stuff worked out in their life. And so if you're getting harmed, it's dysfunctional, abuse is happening. I'm not saying, keep treating them like you want to be, get help. Go to a safe place, talk to someone, get some help. I probably going to preach on this coming up, but this idea of you can't help yourself by yourself. That thing's for free, but that thing has a lot in it. You can't help yourself by yourself. So if you're going through something that's not a healthy relationship, get help. You can't help yourself. So you need a community, you need a counselor, you need a pastor, you need help. And that's okay. And so these dysfunctional relationships aside, here's a great way of approaching relationships. Matthew 7:12 in the Message says this: here's a simple rule of thumb guide for behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you, then grab the initiative and do it for them. I like that. Grab the initiative and do it for them. And watch what he says. Add up God's law and prophets, and this is what you get. Remember, we were talking about math. 2 plus 2 is? 4 plus 4 is? Matthew quotes Jesus here, and he says, if you add up the law, all the laws and all the prophetic things that said, if you add it all up, it culminates and equals as a sum this statement: treat others as you'd want them to treat you. That's an amazing verse. And so just to extend this, these last 3 points are not quite as long, but just to extend this idea of treat others how you want to be treated, how many of you have read 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman? Is that who writes it? The 5 love languages, it's understanding the relationships in your life and how people want to be loved. I would add this as an extension on this verse. I think there's a next level where it says, treat others how you would want to be treated. I think this: why don't we treat others how we know they would want to be treated? See, the idea of love languages is sometimes we're trying to love others and treat them how we think we should be loved, but we're missing the way they want to be loved. So an extension of this is treat others how we know they want to be treated, or love others how we know they want to be loved. Treat others as you know they would feel loved by this treatment. That's next level. I understand my wife is going to like this, so I'm going to do that. I'm not treating her how I want to be treated. I'm treating her how she would like to be treated. Anyways, it both works, but I just thought that was a good thought. All right, we're going to leave that. Number 3, plans. Plans. I have this on my sheet. Where's my plans? Here they go, down at the bottom. Plans. This is on my cheat sheet. So when you're dealing with plans, whether it's a big complex life decision or a simple daily decision, this could be the hopes for your life, the direction you're taking, who you're going to date or who you're going to marry, where to send your kids to school, how to raise your kids, what kind of discipline to do, where to go out for supper, where to live, where to work. Should I move my family across the country to go take this job? My priorities, my schedule. When dealing with questions about your plans, Jeremiah 29:11 says this: for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for prosperity. Look at your neighbor and say prosperity. And not for disaster. Look at somebody else and say not disaster. To give you a future and a hope. Here's the cheat sheet question for plans. Here it is. Does this plan hype hope for my future? I had to consider hope, but I thought I need to hype some hope in this place today. Is what you're about to do, is this plan, does it hype the hope for your future? Are you getting excited about your future because of this plan? Remember, we're talking about a cheat sheet, things you can have written down that if you encounter some situations in your life or circumstances come, you already have some answers written down so you can go to them and go, this is how I live my life. Does this plan hype hope for my future? I don't think anyone goes out to make a plan for disaster. Hopefully, again, refer to functioning relationships. But no one gets up and says, I hope my marriage takes a real big hit today. I'm hoping my investments lose 50% today. I'm hoping someone I love dies today. Right? Nobody makes plans to have that happen, but guess what? It does. You end up having plans for, like, you have to deal with disastrous situations. And honestly, we don't always know which plans are going to be prosperous and which are going to be disastrous. But come next week, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more, because there's some things you can do to try to make your plans be more prosperous than disastrous. This is one of them. But there's a little deeper we can go with this in the cheat sheet. But this is one thing you can start to do. But here's a question off that. Here's a really good one. Wherever you're at, if you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, if you're new to all this, you're coming to church for the first time. I was going to say if you're watching, which you're not, because nobody's watching right now.
Everyone's here instead.
I'm really over it for sure. You can tell. Is what I'm about to do hopeful for the future? Watch this. Or is it just handy for the present? Is what I'm about to do hopeful? That is not the point yet, but you can put it up. You're a little early there, Xavier. Take it off. Take it off. I'm not there yet. Is what I'm about to do hopeful for the future or handy for the present? Does this person I'm going out with give me a hope for my future, or are they just handy for my present? Does buying this car give me hope for my future, or does it handicap my present? Because it was handy for my present. Does this one night stand give me hope for my future, or is it just handy for my present? Now you can throw it up, Xavier. What is handy for the present is often not hopeful for the future. I think most disastrous things are done with immediate gratification in mind. That's good preaching, hey? Don't worry, these next 2 points, they're like hits to the side of me. You know, sometimes you preach from victory and sometimes you preach from like conviction of where God's dealing with. So I'm freely admitting these next 2 ones, God's like, do better, do better. So if it's stepping on your toes now, guess what? Mine, I'm like, yeah, this is, and we'll work through these together. But most disastrous things that end up are done with immediate gratification, or they were handy in the present. Cheat sheets. Remember, we're talking about stuff that you should have on your cheat sheet. Whether it be hooking up, I'm just hooking up. Pawn shops, I'm going everywhere today. Is that trading that helpful for the future? Hopeful for the future, just handy for the present. How about bank day loans, right? Those things? Is that hopeful for your future or handy for the present? How about rent-to-own stuff? Stop buying TVs on rent-to-own. Did I just hit everyone now? I really wish this was going out. I could tick off way more people. Remember I told you I'm going to do that, so. Oh, it is? Did you hear that? No. Hey, good job, team. Yeah, that was the movie quote from before. Thank you for fixing that. Oh, Maury's up there. That makes sense now. It was, oh, Scott. I better give Scott his, look at, he's like, what? Thank you, Scott, for fixing that. Let's give Scott a hand. Those payday rent-to-own, that's what I was like. Stop renting couches and putting furniture in your house because it's handy for the present. It's handicapping your future. It's not hopeful for your future. It's immediate for gratification, and it usually ends up in disaster of some sort, financially, Plan-wise. Anyways, I'm getting to be on my notes. If you're a Christian, that first part was for anybody, Christian, non-Christian. Man, you're new online here and you're going, man, I don't know anything about Jesus, but that can help your life. Here is if you're a Christian. This is the question you need to ask. Does what I'm about to do give God more hope for my future? Christian, what you're about to do, does it give God more hope for your future? Listen, it says, God has a plan for you, thoughts of prosperity and not disaster. What? To give you a future and a hope. Is the plan you're about to make, does it give God hope? Does it hype hope for your future? Psalm 37:23 says this, the steps of a good person, a righteous person are ordered by God. There's some steps God has for you, Christian, that are ordered, that lead towards prosperity, that lead towards hope, that lead towards a future. But if you miss that, you're going to walk towards disaster. So you got to ask yourself this question, is this person I'm dating part of God's order for my hope-filled future? Is this city I'm moving to part of God's order for my hope-filled future? Is this one-night stand part of God's order for my hope-filled future? Is this church I'm going to part of God's order for my hope-filled future? Is this thought I'm having part of God's order for my hope-filled future? Is this emotions I'm feeling part of God's order for my hope-filled future? Is what I'm planning give God hope for my future? You guys getting anything out of this? That's Brad's question. He's not here, so I'll honor him by asking that. Come on, someone say cheat sheet. Oh, come on. I want everyone together. Say cheat sheet. If you're online, why don't you comment to me, cheat sheet. See if I can find it now. Oh, we got our music. Sorry. That's our praise from before. Yeah, I do that. Hey, look, cheat sheet. You were saying cheat sheet. There we go. Oh, Leah's there. Cheat sheet. Thank you, Leah. I'm now joining in online. All right, done that. Number 4, souls. Souls. Not the bottom of your shoes. I learned growing up, your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. So your soul is your mind, how you think about things, people, and others. Your will, how you make decisions about the things you think about. And your emotions, how you feel about the things you think about and the decisions that you make. I'm going to put this definition. It's right here. I thought this was a really good way to think about your souls. Take a picture. You're not going to have time to write this down because I'm going to go too fast for this. But here's this for your souls. Souls is how you think about things. That's your mind. Your will, how you decide to do the things you think about. And then how you feel about the things you think and the decisions you make. That's your emotions. So when it has to do with your thoughts, your decisions, and how you feel about them, that's what I'm talking about when I say you should have this on your cheat sheet. 1 Corinthians 6:12, this is going to be a fun one. All things are lawful. There is some context there that we could dig into. I don't have time for today. It's not saying everything is okay. But it does have a principle here that I think we need to remember. All things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. Come on, look at somebody and say, it's not all helpful. If you're watching today, come on, let me know. Tell me, say, Pastor Derek, it's not all helpful. It's not all helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Here's a cheat sheet question for the soul. The cheat sheet question for the soul. Yeah, I got my soul on here. Is what I'm doing helpful? And can I control it? Ooh. You're probably going to have to go back to this message. Oh, I was going to say go watch it, but it'll be, oh well. I'll re-preach it in a room somewhere. I don't know. Is it helpful? Remember, we're talking about Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Getting a cheat sheet so you can answer the questions of life. When life turns up the heat, you have some answers that you know what to go to when these things happen. When your soul is tested, when your mind is having trouble, when your emotions are all over the place, when you don't know what decision to make. That's what we're talking about here. Have it written on your cheat sheet. Is what I'm thinking? Is this decision I'm making? Is what I'm doing? Is it helpful? And do I think I can control this? Because listen, just because it is legal or lawful does not mean it is helpful. Let me give you some examples. Pot, marijuana, that is now legal. But you need to ask the question, is it helpful? Now, I know we can get into some people, we'd have discussions where they say it is. I'll address that in a little bit. But is it helpful? Okay. Drinking alcohol. It is legal. You can't drive after a certain point, but it is legal and lawful, but is it helpful? You don't have, this is rhetorical, like you don't have to confess, I think it is, I think it's not. And we can get deep into the pot on like, was it the thing that makes you high versus the natural healing remedies of it. There's some discussion there. But asking, is it helpful? How about debt? We talked about that. It's legal, but is it helpful? Sometimes. But it doesn't just mean you should do it. How about porn? Some is very illegal, but some is lawful. Take that as you will. But is it helpful? I told you, I'm getting everyone today, hey? Social media. Social media. Yeah, I don't know why I did that, but I just spice it up because I'm going long. I kind of make sure you're listening. Social media. It is legal and lawful, but I'm telling you, it's not always helpful. Young person, teenager, young adult, those likes on social media, they're lawful, they're legal, but going after that, or, I'm getting off, but doing that certain video, wearing that certain thing to look that certain way, it could be legal, but is it helpful to you, to your future? Netflix, Amazon Prime, Crave, Paramount, there's a whole lot of them now. None of them wrong or illegal, but are they helpful? Eating, this is where it starts to hit me. Eating, we'll get into it even more. But eating, it's legal. You're not going to get arrested if you go to McDonald's every day for 31 days straight. That's right. That was a movie. But is it helpful? No. Drinking. But Pastor Derek, you already did drinking. Oh no, you didn't let me do the second thing. Drinking. Coffee. Drinking coffee, it's legal, but if you can't function without your cup of coffee in the morning, is it helpful? Oh, this will move to point 2. Remember, you asked this about souls. Is it helpful, and can I control it? Because there's some things that may even be helpful, but if they start to control, the verse says, Paul says this, I will not be put under the power of any. So just because it's lawful does not mean you should be doing it, because it may start to control you. Insert the debt argument again. Eventually, guess what? It says in the scripture, the borrower is servant to the lender. And so you may say, hey, this debt is helpful. But eventually, like I said at the beginning, talking about money and stuff, you can't be generous because you owe so much. And so it's not helpful anymore because the debt starts to control you and the decisions you can make. And you say, God's saying, I need to give this, but you're saying, I can't because I bought this car, because I bought this outfit, because I did this. And so it's starting to control you. Oh, I know people aren't sure how to feel right now, hey? Do we shop to cover issues in our life? Do I eat because it makes me feel good because I'm going through a stressful, heated time in my life? Do I look at that thing because it gives me gratification in my physical body? Because I'm feeling inadequate at home, in my marriage? Do I do this as a control mechanism for something else? All of these are legal: debt, alcohol, pot. Not all are helpful, and many may try to control you. How do you know if it started to control you? It begins to alter your soul. Here's the point. If something alters your soul in a way you can't control, be very careful. You guys are listening so well. Sorry I'm taking a little long with this, but I think it's important. I'm not sorry. People tell me, stop apologizing for it. It's the word. If something alters your soul in a way you can't control, be very careful. I don't know if I have that, Xavier. Thank you. If something alters your soul in a way you can't control, be very careful. Now, initially I wrote this: if something alters your soul in the way you can't control, stay away from it. But then I had a discussion with someone as I was pondering it. There potentially could be things that alter souls that are helpful, and you may need to go, because I don't want this to be misunderstood. For instance, somebody who's dealing with ADHD, there's medication right now that is helpful that alters the soul a little bit for kids. We can get into the discussions around that, or there could be anti-depression medicine, things people are taking that alters or adjusts the soul. If you are, your kids are on ADHD, or you're dealing with some things and you have some medication to help with depression, I'm not saying go off of it, don't. Stay on it. You can't help yourself by yourself, right? So I'm not saying that, but I'm saying anything that does that, you got to be careful. But here's the questions you want to ask, because I've taken Tylenol with codeine before. I had surgery on a tooth, and they had to cut a bunch of my jaw out and things, and I was on codeine, and I was looping out. It was weird. It was the closest I had where I was just like, man, right? And so that altered my soul. But here's kind of the qualifier for that. Listen, I got to make sure I do it right. Here's how you know the difference. Professionally prescribed is different than personally to survive. Professionally prescribed is different than personally to survive. If you're doing it on the sneaky sneak, and it's a coping mechanism for what you're going through in your life, and you're taking it personally to survive, that little drink here and there, that becomes more and more. Watching that thing here and here, that becomes a little bit more. Buying that thing, taking on debt a little bit more and more, then guess what? That's personally to survive. It's different than professionally prescribed, because someone else is brought into that process. And then the second thing you need to contend with is it helpful? Watch, not only to you, but to the others around you. Acknowledge that what you're doing is helpful. So is that thing you're taking, is it helping you, but others around say, yeah, that's helping, right? And it's helping you in that way, and it's not necessarily starting to control you. Okay, so I wanted to put that disclaimer in there, or that understanding about this. If it alters your soul in a way you can't control, be careful and do it in a professional, supervised context if you're going to step into some of those things. Make sense? All right, someone say cheat sheet. We're coming to the last one. You guys have listened well. This one's quick. This one hurts, so I went over it really fast because it hurts. Hurts me. So when you're dealing with things with your soul, let me just end on this or touch on this. How you think, how you decide, and how you feel about it, you need to ask the question on your cheat sheet. Is it helpful? And can I control it? Or is it starting to control me? Number 5, your bodies. Your body. Your body. 1 Corinthians 6:13. Food is for the stomach, and the stomach is for food. However, God will do away with both of them. I think he's saying we won't eat in heaven. or not the way we know it. But the body is not for sexual immorality. Okay, I'll leave that. I'm not going to go there. Some of you are like, but for the Lord, that's my point. The body is for the Lord, and the Lord is for the body. 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 says this, or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you? You are a temple of God. And if you aren't sure about the Christianity thing, your body is a temple for your life here on earth. And if you treat it like garbage, it ain't going to serve you well. But we as Christians, it says this, your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God, and that you are not your own, for you have been bought for a price. You've been bought and purchased by the sacrifice of Jesus. We're going to take communion here in a few minutes. That's the price that was paid. And so we're going to glorify God in our bodies. We're going to glorify God in our actions by remembering what he did for us. But I love this. It says, glorify God in your body. Here's the cheat sheet question for the body. Does this build up my temple? Does this build up my temple? I'm almost done. You guys have done great. I wish I could read faces. So unsure. I'm leaving people to just write notes who are writing notes so I don't move on. Okay. So here's the 3 things you can ask. This is for those, again, you're new to Christianity, you're coming in, you're saying, hey, I'm not sure about this. This will help you with your life. Here's 3 things anyone should ask is this. Is what I am doing for my body building up my temple? These questions aren't coming up. You're just going to have to listen. Is what I'm doing for my body, whether it be like physical activity, sometimes it may be going to a chiropractor or a physio person. You're doing things for my body. Is what I'm doing for my body building up my temple? Is what I'm putting in my body building up my temple? Yeah. And here's the last one. Is what I'm putting on my body building up my temple? Tattoos, clothes, plastic surgery, body morphing, piercings. I'm not saying they're wrong. You just need to ask this question. Now, Christian, we've got a higher standard. Because that verse says, therefore glorify God in your body. There is a way for us to live that glorifies God with our bodies. So I'm going to put these questions in terms of that now. Is what I'm doing for my body, does it glorify God with my body? Wait, is what I'm putting in my body glorify God with my body? And the last one, is what I'm putting on my body, does it glorify God with my body? So when you get that craving, Derek, late at night, Derek, is what you're about to eat, does that help me glorify God with my body? When you're getting a crazy idea about something to do with your body and all that, again, none of these are wrong. Remember, go to number 4. All things are lawful, potentially not all things are helpful. Does it glorify God with your body? You want to do some body morphing? Ask the question, does this glorify God with my body? When you're getting ready to pull out that certain outfit that shows off the right curves and the right you-know-what, guys, that right muscle shirt or that, that thing that makes her look at you like this. You have to ask this question. Is what I'm putting on this body, is it glorifying God with my body? I'm just going to go and then we're done. Because you guys can all leave and you can have a breath. And I'm going to make this along any lines along with posting on social media. Is what I'm about to post, does this glorify God with my body? And then I'll do it this way too. Is what I'm looking at glorifying God with my body? Do we consider that when we're about to do it? Does this glorify God with my body? It may. I'm just saying you need to contend with that. I'm not going to come up to you and say, that does that. You need to contend with that, but you need a cheat sheet that asks that question. Because if you don't, you're not going to get the answers right. You're going to get some wrong places. Music team, come on up. 1 hour. I have not preached for an hour for a long time. So life's going to come at you with some tests. Like Forrest Gump said, you sometimes feel like you don't know what you're going to get. But if you have a cheat sheet, then guess what? You can have some answers down on the page so you know what you're going to get. You can tell the chocolate before you bite into it. Before you bite into it and go, I didn't know, oh my goodness, how did this happen? I ended up screwing this, You can have some things on there that help you know what you're going to get, so you go, yeah, this is what I planned for. This is what I found. Because life is going to turn up the heat. So at the beginning I said this, when life turns up the heat, don't forget your cheat sheet. You need to have a cheat sheet. So here's the challenge. This week, grab a blank piece of paper and make your cheat sheet. I'm not kidding. You can use the categories I have: finances, relationships, plans, souls, and bodies. You can use the exact same questions I had. They're really good base. Next week, we're going to come and dig into that and know the difference between prosperous and disastrous things. And we're going to learn the difference between ways you can understand tests and pass tests is through memorizing or mastering. And in between comes understanding. Both you can learn from. But we're going to dig into that a little bit. But get yourself a piece of paper or a digital piece of paper and write down some things that you say, when this comes, when I'm struggling with a plan, when I'm struggling whether I should go out or do this, or I should drink this, or I should look at this, go back to your cheat sheet and say, no, this isn't helpful. No, this isn't something my soul needs. No, this isn't something I should put in my body. We're going to just quickly do communion and we're done. If you are on the side here, you can start handing it out. I did this communion message 2 weeks ago because it tied into reality and simile, because it was supposed to be done 2 weeks ago. So I'm just going to touch on that again. I kept it here. But our practice is once a month, usually the first Sunday of the month, to just take a moment to remember the reality that Jesus died for us. And symbolically or similarly, we come in and we do this in remembrance of Jesus and what he did. And Luke 22 does say this in verse 19, and when he had taken some bread and given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them. So I do want to say this. Have you ever, I don't know if you guys do this or we should be doing this, or symbolically we do this, when you get that little bread piece on the top, well, it doesn't taste wonderful, but it doesn't taste. Shake it though. I recommend shaking the juice before you have it, because sometimes stuff settles, and so yeah, I found that helps. But when we take the bread, representation of Jesus' body, it says he broke it. So we break it before in representation of what happened to Jesus. But this is a good time to symbolically remember the reality of what Jesus had on the cross. And so with the bread, we say we break it so that we can remember this is what you did for us, Jesus. And then it says the blood, that he shed his blood. This verse says he took the cup after they had eaten, saying, this cup which is poured out for you is the new covenant of my blood. So here's the reality. God's reality is that Jesus' body was broken so we could be whole, spirit, soul, and body. God's reality is that Jesus' blood was shed so that we could be forgiven. The cross, when people looked at it, they looked like it was over, right? They looked at it and said, it looks like it is over. All the disciples went, hey, what is going on? And even though they were told, they looked at it and it looked like the end of the story was told, but it was a simile. Because underneath in the ground there, Jesus was moving some things around in hell. He was turning some things around. And so what looked like was the end of Jesus was just the beginning. And so the cross looked like it was over, but the resurrection said it is just the beginning. The resurrection is the reality. And so we're reminding ourselves as we go through all this, and as life turns up the heat and we're trying to figure out how to make these cheat sheet things to do some stuff, we go, Jesus, the only reason we can even attempt this is because of the reality you set for us. And so we do this in remembrance of you with grateful hearts, saying we are so grateful for that price you paid. So, did I not get one? Beautiful. It's okay. It's okay. So, let's take the wafer. You might have it already. Yeah, sure. And so, what you're going to do is you break it, in remembrance of his body broken. We say, God, Jesus, we do this in remembrance of you. Thank you for what you did with your body. And then you can partake. Jesus, we thank you for the blood you shed, the new covenant that your blood created, that though our sins were as scarlet, you washed them white as snow. We do not want to forget the reality that we can walk into because of the price you paid, and so we take this in remembrance of you. Hallelujah. This song's playing. We're going a little late, but we'll dismiss. But we're going to sing this. Some of you, it just says, God, you are good, good. It's good to remind ourselves of God's goodness. What we're going to do here, I'm going to just do this on the fly, and it might not take. We're going to worship. If you need to go, you need to go. It's getting late. If you're online, you can just let the music play in the background. I need a few of our leaders, Murray and Pat, Annette, Lorna. We're not going to do a prayer line, but we're going to have them just come stand at the front. And if you need prayer for anything, you're dealing with health issues, you're dealing with financial issues, you're saying, man, I want to have a cheat sheet, I've been trying to do stuff right, I need help, I need grace. They're going to just come here, and you can just come, and they'll just pray for you as we worship, and we go into the end of the service. We're actually going to be starting this practice a little bit more. I just didn't plan it yet. You can come stand like right across here. So you can just come get with anyone you want, and they'll pray with you. If we don't have anyone, that's great. But if you want to go, you can go. We're going to worship a bit. If you feel like you need to worship, if you want someone to pray and joy faith with you because you're believing for something, then come on up here, and we'll do it. If we have more people, I'll add a few more to pray. But we're going to start this practice at the end of service. We just want to be able to offer prayer for anyone that needs prayer. Thank you. Tuesday, we have groups. Sunday, we got church part 3 of Box of Chocolates. Don't miss it. A few announcements. Get your thing in for the Randalls, the surprise thing. If you need invitation for the banquet, we got some at the welcome booth. There's baptism forms, there's child dedication forms. All of that, you want to go, it's at the welcome booth. Scott's kind of there. You need to sign up for it. We're coming close to some of these dates. God bless you. Have a great week. We love you. We are so glad you're part of this community. Let's worship.
Let the King